All right. Peace, love, and greetings to our melanated family. This is another broadcast where we come to have an amazing and critical dialogue about topics that affect and are relevant to Black people. This is another Melanated Media Solutions broadcast, I should say, of course. We have myself, Kashama Sankofa. We have Brother Duke the Root online with us. And Dr. Cleo Monago is actually out this evening, but he will surely be joining us for the next broadcast. And of course, as usual, we will be opening up the lines for our audience to come in and join us. If we say anything that resonates with you or anything that you don't even agree with, pull up and let's have this critical dialogue among family. All
Yes,
right.
yes. And I
So Duke, my bad, what you about to say, brother?
just have a small correction. We have Melanated Solutions Media. Uh, Forgiveness over
My
there. We're
bad.
trying to get this all going. But we would love to start off, as usual, with our family feedback. So I do have some comments here from our last video. I hope you all had a chance to watch. But if not, we have Anwar Uhuru, who said, "I'm enjoying this simply." We also have Induke Inhere Ebete, who says, "This is informative, brothers. Capitalism has always relied exclusively on Black people and Black identity." And we've also had Boosie Latham, who said, "This is deep preach, Doc." So, as always, for Family Feedback segment, we begin our live streams talking about what has the community felt, what has our family seen, and what would they love for us to express more, and then, well, comments of affirmation, as well as if anyone disagrees with us, you may get a little call out here and we can address those things. But we've been feeling the love so far, and we thank you all. Again, if you haven't, because we know that Facebook is fickle and there's a lot of politics involved, we do encourage everyone to follow us on all appropriate pages as possible, including our YouTube of Melanated Solutions Media. You can find that YouTube link and channel. I believe that a comment will be posted about it soon for anyone to follow through to that link. But for now, we're getting ready to move into our current events. Adam, if you could roll clip.
Woo!
Yes.
Versus.
So I believe we should definitely start with the highlight moment for me of happiness and joy. I actually watched it twice. Did you happen to get a chance to watch it, Kashama?
I went back and forth. I didn't watch it all the way from beginning to end because it is 3 hours long. And
Shit, I don't know if it was so I haven't watched any of the other verses. To be 100% honest, I have never watched any of the other verses. I saw snippets of who was it, Erica Badu and Jill Scott. I saw snippets. I wasn't able to catch the whole thing, but this one I watched it twice. So just because I was getting my full life from this particular exchange, I remember growing up and seeing these two women in my state of confusion, loving Monica. I was Team Monica all the way. That's me. And I know you're a Brandy fan, correct?
I was gonna say, they weren't women either back when you were watching them. They were actually girls
what
too.
killed me. And I actually made a comment about that, about the music industry, because when I was younger, I had no idea, like, the dresses and the way that these women were marketed. Well, at this time, these children were marketed. And the songs they were singing, had no idea they were as young as 12 and 13 when we were first introduced to them. And I was like, this is such a nasty industry, just going forward and looking at that. So that was definitely like a moment of reflection for me, thinking back. I thought these were full-blown women when I first met them, and I never took the time to look into their age, and it was crazy them telling about their stories. And I don't think a lot of people picked up on just how disgusting that really is, or how they sexualize and market our children in this industry.
Yeah, it's something that they've I think they've kind of, always done to a certain extent. They've
Hmm.
children in entertainment have grown up fast, and it's something that we're just now, I think, becoming a little bit more conscious of and taking a little bit more seriously. One thing I
Hmm.
did, or what I did get from this, and with all of the verses actually, I think this is a chance for Black people to really, kind of control our art more so, and to really profit off of it. Like, we're driving our own profits at this point. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? The Brandy, there's nobody influencing this other than Brandy and Monica. And to my
Hmm.
knowledge, they both have projects that, coming out right around this time. But I just think it's
Brandy's was
showing,
already out. Shout out. Hmm.
yeah, it's showing a lot of power that we do have that we should seize. I mean, cultural power that we really should seize upon. Um, but it doesn't end with Brandy and Monica, because now Gladys and Patty are talking about doing the verses.
Gladys and Patty. I know a couple of my grannies and mothers and and
Yeah.
hopefully fathers and uncles are going to be really really happy about that. I know the real talk is unfortunately our soul sister Aretha is not around, who I think what everyone really wants to see is a Patty versus Aretha. But Gladys is definitely going to come through and make nice and
Yeah.
deliver some good tracks there. But back to what you were saying about the power of controlling media, it's definitely something I made reference to even doing the live. And I think they blocked regular regular people comments. I think only verified check marks were allowed to comment on the live. But I was stating that it would be so awesome if we had our own social media platform to really dictate and show these particular instances. Because I know for Instagram in a general, now, mind you, they were able to pull strings, but in general on Instagram, you can only do a live stream for an hour before it automatically cuts you off. And you have to do a lot of workarounds in order to maneuver through that. So even in the beginning, when they were doing some of the live streams, it was just like, all right, we got to, some of the verses they had to stop it at the hour mark and then restart and have people rejoin because that was the limitations of that particular social media platform. And I just think that white people aren't doing this. Asian people aren't doing this. Mexicans aren't doing. They like. There's no artists group culturally that can draw that many people saying, "Oh, it's getting ready to be this type of head to head,"
Hmm.
and you're going to see it like Celine Dion versus who is going to do what. Like
Uh-uh.
it's not given. So I just really, really wish that we recognize our power more and because I
Hmm.
think we do it in small steps to enact and enable ourselves to do this versus and us all come in and support it. That's wonderful. That's great. That's amazing. And I think the next step is create our own platform. And you can say
Yeah.
whatever. And Tyler Perry is probably going to be part of a hot topics at another point because there's some things about him. But I will say what I do love is the fact that they were able to host this versus at his studio and I think
Yeah.
that's amazing. So it's just like just the optics of how we can be supporting and maneuvering as Black people, and creatively and economically.
Well, like Dr. Claude Anderson said, we are an exceptional people. And
Mhm.
Dr. Claude Anderson is an economist. So when he says that, he means that. Like, we are an exceptional people. We bring power and generate resources where that are unheard of coming from other groups in ways that are unheard of coming from other groups and our abilities. So yeah, I agree with you on that. And good shout out to the fact that it was happening at Tyler Perry Studios. Whatever issues I have with him and his hair department of his shows and movies, I I do
Yeah,
like the
there's
idea
a
of us.
critique of him going on right now about I think he's a billionaire now or something, or was it a millionaire? I don't remember what it was. But they were stating about how he was able to achieve that particular economics by being anti-union is a statement as well as pretty much only being the only person in the writing room, and which is why we have some of these recycled, retied stories that we see over and over. But I do believe in giving people their credit for things that they are credited for, even if there's worth critique. He did do some good work, and so I will acknowledge that.
So there's another verses that popped off too that I don't think maybe everybody hasn't been following, but it definitely made some splashes, was between Cardi B and Candace Owens.
Good segue.
Um,
Good segue there.
I
So
mean,
it started on Twitter, and my Twitter is not active like that. I still have it so I can log in. But were you able to catch everything? I tell you, because I saw Cardi's post, and I was like, all right, let me see what's going on. And I went
I
through to
saw
find
all
out.
of it. I saw all of it, but I did not think to quote it for the live stream. I
Mhm.
mean, you people, y'all can go on Twitter. It's not hard to find.
But have
They
you
were
heard
clapping
about
back. They were clapping at each other.
a broken clock being right twice a day? Like this was it was that was the perfect analogy for what I think was happening between those two sisters. And it had oh my god, I can't believe I said this, but Candace was reading. Candace was uh,
Well, I don't know if you pay
ironically.
attention to Candace, Duke. Candace
I,
will say a lot of truths
yes.
in her, in her delivery, and in order to deliver the sort of disinformation that she does, she's an agent of disinformation. Basically,
Hmm.
she will put truths along with half truths, along with blatant lies, in order to promote a certain narrative. And yeah, I just think it was a case of, like you said, two broken clocks going at each other about whose massa should run the big house,
Hmm.
basically.
I noticed that one, I had a conversation with Candace Owens way back before she got super popular. So
Okay.
she when she was first coming up, she had like this original Facebook page where she was questioning, and I think this was when she first started to become quote unquote Republican. I don't know like what her agenda is because she's flip flopped across lines of where she stands in politically. But I remember finding her, and at this point in time, I was just trying to understand Black people more. And so I had actually reached out to her to find out, why is it that you're saying the things that you say? Because these are completely against, everything that I know to be true, and it puts Black people in a bad light, blah blah blah. And Candace's response to me in my inbox, this had been about, I want to say maybe 5, 6 years ago. And she said she was just stating about how much she really loved and cared for Black people, and
Hmm.
how she wanted us to stop being victims and of democracy and white people and blah blah blah. She was like, she thinks that Black people are amazing, but we keep doing certain things that prohibit us from being great. And so she had all of this, flowery and love language and affirmations, quote unquote, for Black people, at least in my inbox at that moment, just trying to understand, because I only reached out just to understand her position, because I know I will never agree with it. But I wanted to make space for her reasoning. And the things she was saying to since then, I don't believe any of that to be true, but the things she was saying to Cardi B over this exchange, I think when she hit the nail on the head for me was when she said that Joe Biden thinks you're dumb. Cardi saying to Cardi, Joe Biden thinks you're dumb. And I I nearly snapped at that moment because Cardi and a few other people happen to have this idea that because you have a platform with Joe Biden, who's a presidential candidate, that you are somehow considered worth and smart and a speaking agent for the Black community. And it's just like, no, like what Malcolm X said was true, that we are the only culture who has entertainers and singers and actors and whatnot else be the spokespersons for a group of people politically. And that's not the case for
Well, I think
any other
what's
demographic.
well, I think what's important to understand too is that not only does Biden think that Cardi B is dumb, but
He
he
also
thinks that
thinks
black
Kansas is
people are
the
he thinks that black people are dumb too.
yeah.
Because I mean, nothing against Cardi B. She does what she does. I mean, I don't have nothing more against Cardi B than I do what's that woman's name back in the day that used to do like chi chi cha cha something.
I, you got me. I'm 20. I'm
I forget
28.
Charo. I don't know if you remember Charo, right? Charo, the get you. She was a
No,
character. Cardi B is a character. So I
no.
don't have anything against her, but the thing about it is Joseph Biden didn't give interviews like for how long? And then once he came out of the closet or whatever, he decides to speak to Cardi B. And I
Hmm.
think that's an insult. Now he's meeting with, I think, Ice Cube or somebody. So
Hmm.
I don't even think it's a rather of we're the only culture who has spokespeople who in the entertainment industry. I think we're the only group of people who politicians and actual political machines try to promote that type of narrative and type of mindset within us to try to act like these
Hmm.
entertainers are somebody who's going to speak for us politically. That is. And with the
Hmm.
whole thing with Candace Owens, she actually sued an institution for racism
Yes,
before
I
she
do recall
became
that. Even though she
she
says that racism isn't a thing
well,
anymore.
now she says that, but before she was
Yeah.
experiencing racism, and she was also experiencing it within the Democratic Party, I believe.
Hmm.
So my point is, she's another traumatized, colonized, and I hate to use the word crazy because it's a very pathologized word, and it's a word used to stigmatize people with real mental illness.
Hmm.
I'm talking about the type of cultural disconnect that happens in Black people when we go through certain amounts of trauma and try to find ourselves and try to gain some type of acceptance in this world. I think that's one of what Candace Owens is doing. She's tap
Hmm.
dancing for those Republican butter biscuits, thinking that that's the acceptance that she never got on the Democratic side.
I think with 2020, what I if I have to appreciate anything in the year 2020, anything, it would be the fact that I am recognizing the real gray area in politics between these two quote unquote left side, right side, Democratic, Republican. I'm recognizing that both sides are. We've always known this. I've said it, but we recognize the extremes of crazy on both sides, and that the only way to really make it forth in this particular society is to really gain some political agency, really gain political power, and just move for what you want, whatever side that happens to be on, but really using politics instead of politics use you, which is something that we discussed with Dr. Cynthia McKinney. It says Cardi B doesn't even represent Black culture. She's the downfall of the culture. That's definitely a statement. That's one of our commenters, CJ Rutland. Uh, that's definitely something
CJ,
to acknowledge.
he
I
should
don't.
come on later to talk about that because we're going to talk more about Cardi B and WAP and what
Mhm.
what that offers to the culture and what are we building with our artistry.
Hmm. It's definitely a perspective, and so I interested to see where the dialogue will go there. I think while we're here, I think the next progression is just thinking about Anita Hill is promoting Joe Biden, endorses Joe Biden in this particular incident. And so, would you go over Anita Hill? Because I know not everyone people remember the name, not really. You
Yeah.
gotta go over it. Like, what's going on there?
So, okay, long time ago, back in the 80s, back when Clarence Thomas was being confirmed to the Supreme Court, or before he was confirmed to the Supreme Court, Anita Hill was found by the media out of, whatever obscure place she was in teaching law, and they wanted to know more about the accusations that she had made about Clarence Thomas years before when she worked for him, sexual harassment accusations. So, with that being said, she was brought before Congress to testify, and Joseph Biden, in particular, were one of the hardest people on her. She was basically dragged through the mud for something she never asked for. She never came forward and said, "Hey, Clarence Thomas did this to me." They came and found her, just kind of like the Kavanaugh hearings, what we just kind of had, whereas they were bringing up all these accusations about him and they were grilling him. But instead, Anita Hill was the one getting grilled, and she got grilled by Joseph Biden. She was treated quite unfairly. All of the law experts and all the people from that time look back on that era and they say that she was completely, like just dragged by Joe
Hmm.
Biden as well as other Democrats at the time. Joseph Biden, since when he started running for president, he decided to issue an apology to her. She since came out and endorsed him and said that she think it could help him with his gender issues.
Interesting stuff there. So even just for more clarity before we go in there, I know they recently did a film about her story.
Hmm.
And I think Curry, the good sis Curry Washington, I believe,
Terry
played her in
Washington,
this film. So I don't know the name of it. I haven't been able to watch it yet, but I know it's on one of these streaming
HBO, I
sites
think.
somewhere. Yeah, it's somewhere. But
Yeah.
if anyone's interested, we may put that on a list to dissect and really understand at some point. So Anita endorsing Biden, like, what does that say? People have a question about that, and I know I have some thoughts about what that means to me. And it's the same message that we've been hearing consistently that Trump is the Antichrist and literally anything better will do. And I think, if anything, it's just a matter of just really questioning what are we going to make Biden do? Like, give Biden our vote for what? You know, give whoever our vote for what. I mean, we need to really be making decisions and demands of these individuals as opposed to just quote unquote for the last I don't know how many election years I've been hearing this, but you vote for the lesser of two evils for how many, like how long, like what, like eventually, like
And
if
why are
the
they
whole
evil?
people was evil, then what like what are we doing? Like
But you know what I get from this too? I think this was very strategic on part of the Democrats because right now black men are like the thorn in the side of Biden Harris ticket. Black men have been like they tried to ignore us. They tried to say we didn't matter. They tried to say that the black women were the backbone bones of the party and they had to secure the black women vote and just kept acting crazy as if half of black people aren't black men, right? They talk about the black vote and then automatically start talking about black women. So you have the issue of Biden and Harris having these horrible records, particularly with black men because of the mass incarceration question.
mm-hmm,
With with Anita Hill coming out and, so to speak, forgiving Biden for what he did to her, this is to me, this is a message saying if a black woman can forgive Biden, if black women can get on board, despite what has been done to them by Biden, by proxy, via Anita Hill, then black men, you should be able to get over the not proxy, but the very real damage that Biden has done to you. That's what I see this as. And I think it's ironic. I emphasize the fact that she said she's going to help him with his gender issue because I
mm-hmm.
think she's full of crap. And I hate
Well,
to say it. And
I don't
I
personally.
wish we could bring I wish we could bring a sister on here to give a woman's voice to this. But I think she's full of crap. I think this
Yeah,
is
definitely
purely
open up.
purely to get the black vote. This has nothing to do with women. White women are voting for Trump for the most part. And it has nothing to do with gender because Trump has the worst record when it comes to gender. Nobody has a worse gender record than Trump. I will say that Trump is worse than Biden. I think Biden
Mm-hmm,
sniffing girls' hair is nothing compared to Trump grabbing them by the you know what. So
mm-hmm,
I think she's completely full of it with that whole woman stuff. She's just trying to corral the black vote, and they're trying to shame black men into joining that. And the worst thing about it is now I don't even think enough black women are even being fooled by it. I think
mm-hmm,
enough black women and black men are on code and are seeing things eye to eye this election season.
mm-hmm. I think the huge struggle politically right now for Black people is trying to quote unquote scare us into activity because a lot of us are just really inactive. Uh, Anita Hill is commenting low. B. Denny says Anita Hill is doing this for white women. I argue Hill means nothing to the Black community, particularly Black men. She's done nothing for Black people. I haven't
Mm,
followed Anita
that's
Hill's
interesting,
career,
Lowell.
so yeah, that's a different perspective there. I haven't followed Anita Hill's career, so I don't have a lot of personal thoughts. I do remember some of the stories growing up, but that's really all I know. Um,
I think that's logical what Lowell is saying, but in Cleo's absence, I have to quote him. Because I used to be boggled sometimes, and I come to Cleo and I'm like, well, why are they that don't make sense? He say white supremacy mythology isn't logical.
mhm.
There's not you not you know what I'm saying, you find logic and then you see white supremacy mythology just goes complete left of that sometimes. I think that they are grasping at straws, and they really do think that Anita Hill means something symbolic to Black people. I honestly think that,
Mhm.
and because it would make sense that she would be a symbol for white women, because she was a big symbol for feminism during that time. However, white women are on cold like a mug
Consistently, even for Trump.
consistently. They're
Cons-
not caring even playing.
like you can grab my. They was out there with the hat saying you can grab my. You know what?
Yeah,
So it's definitely a thought process behind in really becoming in congruence and cohesion with each other as a culture. And I think that's the biggest struggle for us right now. And honestly, like I'm looking at the ballot and I'm just like, eh, like 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 there's nothing here that's making me happy. There's nothing here that's calling forth saying that I'm going to get what I want out of this exchange. But we do know, and this isn't even hot topics, but it's definitely something that we'll cover in the next meeting. But we got this tape interview about Trump and how his response to COVID and how he knew about what was going on. But he chose. Oh, you don't know anything about this? Oh, brother. I feel like I need to pull up the link. So I
that's for
gotta
y'all
find it.
people. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. That's for y'all people who are into this whole democratic thing.
So yeah, that's definitely and feel free, especially if the comment is when we open up the stream. If you happen to know about this, let's talk about that a little bit because that's definitely a real hot topic. That's very recent. It was on news all this week about tapes being leaked from a white reporter where Trump knew about the dangers of COVID but purposely played it down in order to quote unquote not cause panic. And he's also quoted saying that he knows that systematic racism is a thing.
Oh well, he's
he,
he got
he
rich off
knows
it. I'm
it's a
sure he
thing.
do know it. But
So,
that's interesting. We need to have Dr. Cynthia McKinney on to talk about COVID again as well.
mhm,
Especially since they didn't take our last live stream down.
mhm.
I guess it's safe to bring her on again. But also Jessica Krug,
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that. So,
the Blackfish
Jessica,
professor.
Blackfish Professor. So,
Blackfishing.
anyone who doesn't know about this story, I've also seen the name Regina Cruz at some point too. I don't know. She's had
Yeah.
multiple aliases. But anyways, another white woman has decided to come forth and acknowledge that she is actually white and has been masquerading as a black woman for the past up teen years, posting articles, writing in perspective of advocacy, talking about growing up in the hood specifically, uh, and really putting out this narrative out there that she's a black woman. And if anyone was to question her particular ethnicity, it was a quote unquote trauma trigger. So she was able to avoid a lot of
For real?
yes, this was part of her this was actually part of her defense tactics for the year. So if anyone
Woo.
questioned her ethnicity, she would have a trauma trigger. It was like a whole response and
Mm,
like,
mm, mm.
crying and tears and like and writing articles and things about that and having also black people who I guess who were swindled by this woman defend her in that instance, saying, you can't question her about this because she's a black woman, she's just very, very light skinned or something.
So
So
the reason I really had to say what, because I didn't know about the whole trigger thing. And
yeah, it's
see,
the whole
a,
thing.
a lot there. Okay, in this new modern era of social
Weaponizing mental
consciousness
illness. That's what she did.
and
Yeah.
and wokeness, there's this thing about safe spaces and triggers, and I point this out because Black people, I'm talking about real Black people like me and Duke, right? We get
We
we
gotta
get
say this. We
we
gotta
get
say
taken
this.
through
Real black people.
real Black people, we get taken through all of this crap about triggering people. You know what I'm saying? When we get the brunt of all the genocide in this society, we've gone so far with this whole idea of creating safe spaces for everybody that we've forgotten what the whole damn point of safe spaces are. Is
And now
because
it's unsafe. It's not
some
even
of
safe
us
for
really
us.
are in danger.
We're not even safe. Like we've been created a safe space for every community except us. Every time
Everybody
I
is
spin
safe.
around, we make it safe for everybody. Rachel Dolezal was safe. Talcum X, safe. Consistently.
Can't
Okay.
trigger nobody, but you can pull a trigger on a black man though. But you can't
Mm-hmm.
trigger Jessica Cruz by asking her who's your mama, who's your daddy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, dang. That's what people. When I was growing up, you came over somebody's house. The first thing their parents asked you was, "Who's your people?"
Mm-hmm.
Come
It's
on
really
now.
crazy. Like, and I don't even know where to begin, Kashama. I don't. But I'll try to stick on topic here. I know part of the way it broke, at least for me, the way that I found out about the article is I happen to follow this brother's page named Son of Baldwin. He's curated a space of talking points for Black people, his thoughts and his blogging rather, and his advocacy. And I don't agree with everything he says, but he's here, and I followed this page, and he happened to make the post first that I saw, recognizing because she wrote to Medium. That's what she did. She wrote to Medium, acknowledging that she's really a white woman. So, he acknowledged how bamboozled he was, but he went through the story about how there were a couple of times this woman approached him and said, "Oh, you need to let a black woman speak about this because you shouldn't do it as a cis male, quote unquote, shouldn't be cis black man shouldn't be able to talk about this. You need a black woman's perspective to speak on this particular subject matter." And so he made space because sometimes he was talking about black women's issues or whatnot else. And so he made space for this black woman to come through on his platform uh, a couple of times, and she said her dues. And when the news broke, there was this huge debate on his page. He even had to delete one of the posts about how there were black women who were consistently in question about this woman's Regina or Jessica ambiguous. That's what her name going to be. Ambiguous ethnicity. They were in question about ambiguous, and apparently they were saying that black men did not believe darker toned black women about this woman, questioning this woman, and so therefore they consistently made space for this conversation of colorism, this conversation of these light skinned women who ain't even black, getting the opportunities that black women should be getting. So he tried to defend himself in that particular moment, stating that it was black women who were also defending ambiguous. There were black women who were close friends of this woman who
Becky
also,
Shabazz.
huh?
Becky Shabazz is what they're calling her.
Becky Shabazz. Okay, I'll go with the common group name at this point. But Becky Shabazz defending her. So she had black allies, some of which were black women. And I just found it interesting that the way that it broke down on his page, it was just like, even though he's consistently, throughout all that I've known, his particular online social profile, he's consistently been trying to make space for black women's narratives and stories and film stories and making space for everything black women and femininity in congruence with that. He was taken to task. Like the moment he messed up on this particular incident, it was over for him. Like he had people calling him out, asking for various different types of accountability, as far as him getting rid of his page. Other people saying that you got to
Yeah,
make sure that it was crazy over there.
but the thing about it though, Duke, is it's like the people who get mad at people breaking into stores and burning stuff down as opposed to getting mad at the cop killing us. Like this
Correct.
woman is a liar and a deceiver, and you're
Who
mad at
deceived
this
the
brother
college?
because he was deceived. You're
Yeah.
mad because he got deceived by a deceiver.
So I don't even know if this part is true, but I saw at one point that apparently she was hired as the diversity hire, like of that particular college institution. Like she was hired as their diversity hire. So can you the back pay? Okay, that needs to
Right.
happen. Um,
Well, there are people who can teach African history and African American studies who are white. They will hire white people to do that.
mhm.
So I don't know necessarily if she would have to pay money back or if they're considering it a fraud thing because you don't have to necessarily be black to teach African American
I
history.
said that
But
needs to happen. I'm not in
yeah,
under any confusion that it will.
I agree. But you know something that bothers me too. I saw a clip of her talking, and she just had the dirtiest lumberjack mouth. Like every other word was an F bomb. Like I'm talking about like she was talking to news cameras. I'm like, it's like she was really overcompensating, trying to put up this whole sassy, Latina sassy, type of image. And I think it was just a real insult to black women and to black people. And I do believe that there's an amount of colorism that contributes to that type
Absolutely.
of BS. There's a reason why all these, people keep these doppelgangers keep getting by coming through is because a lot of us get enamored with light skinned people. That's why they keep talking about how beautiful Kamala is. Kamala, she ain't all that. She ain't no cuter than most sisters. Like they keep honestly, man, we got to get over that. Or else all these doppelgangers, they're gonna keep coming through. Every
Yeah, but
time
we
you're
don't.
enamored.
We keep treating colorism like it's its own thing, as opposed to really it being a extension of internalized racism and racism in general. Like we keep treating colorism like it's a separate subject, as opposed to recognizing exactly how traumatized and dehumanized we are under this particular society's beauty standards that affects both men and
Mhm.
women and all genders in between and outside. It affects all of us and how we perceive ourselves and how we want to navigate and what we want to be around. And yeah, it's definitely something that has to be examined, especially in our academic circles, because these are the people who are creating the rhetoric and the theology that gets trickled down into our community spaces that we regurgitate and consider ourselves advocates um, and agents for and promoting at the end of the day. And here we are. I also made a post when it first broke. I don't know her work at all. I never read any of her articles, thankfully. So I was never poisoned or anything. But um, I wonder how many times she said something damning about cis hetero black men, if we were going to use this
Mhm.
language, and it was just taken as gospel truth by particular communities of black people. And it's just like we keep allowing individuals who are not us to dictate how we navigate and interact with each other. And this time they just faking us. Now they're just, I'm black.
Yeah,
That's it. I'm black.
basically.
Like,
I'm black.
it used to be
But
different, like, but now it's just I'm black. I'm black.
so in other news though, we lost a real one. We
We
lost a,
did.
a real a real live brother who
We did.
was a hero to many, and just all around good guy. I mean, because and honestly, I didn't know so much about him until after he passed, brother Chadwick Boseman. But he's someone
That's him
that
and his
we
wife there.
yeah, him and his wife. What's his wife name again?
Oh, ooh,
Oh, I
Lord,
thought I thought that was the name you were trying to get me to pronounce. But anyway,
I
um, so this brother is a shining example, I want to say, of black artistry and actually what I would call integrity in your art. He purposely and intentionally only accepted roles that would show black people in a dignified light. He purposely, would not degrade black people. He purposely showed James Brown in a respectful and dignified light when that could have went totally left. It could have went the Ike Turner route. And if y'all don't know what I mean by the Ike Turner route, in the movie What's Love Got to Do with It, there was a lot of falsehoods created
mm-hmm.
by Ike Turner, including the rape scene, which Ike Turner maintains he never, did. But I go back to brother Chadwick Boseman. He also is a testament to legacy. I believe Duke, you will point out to us that he was taught by Felicia Rashad. That was his acting teacher or something like that.
Oh, I'm not. I know he's had a lot of different run-ins with folks. Like, so I'm not sure. I don't know about that particular moment. I do know that Denzel Washington played a huge part in his career unknowingly, just
Yeah.
because Denzel was giving out scholarships at the time, and I believe Chadwick was selected for one of those. I do know that the brother Michael B. Jordan benefited just by the agency that Chadwick Boseman had, far as critiquing a show that he was on at one point. I don't remember the name of the show. God help me. But Chadwick Boseman was playing like this 16-year-old young black brother on like a soap opera series, and at one point the characters role was changing into that of a quote unquote thug and more stereotypical black male features. And
Mm-hmm.
he said, he questioned that and he said, I don't really like this. And he gave suggestions on where this character could go. And in response, the producers and the writers said that we'll take this under consideration. We like this idea, but they let him go because they said that he was troubled just for questioning that. And years later, or sometime later, Michael B. Jordan wound up picking up that role, and his character had the changes that Chadwick proposed, but that was, just part of this brother's legacy of, you're not going to do black people a certain way. And I found out later on after his passing that he refused, along with another sister. God, I don't remember. Maybe it was Journey. I'm not sure. Journey Smollett. But they refused to do a another slave movie. He said, when I look over my career, I don't want to see a slave movie in my
His
catalog,
repertoire,
and
yeah.
I don't want to see that. And he said that I think my people are also tired of seeing black people in certain positions, and so it speaks to why he took the roles that he did. Uh, no, and can you? He was holding that in for 4 years from the public. And the entire time, for those who don't know, he died from colon cancer, which is actually one of the preventable types of cancer. And that's something else that we have to really get on and talk about. And we'll make room for that as Black people, like not making sure that we take care of our personal health and preventing 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 death that we don't have to have. And Chadwick was holding us in for 4 years, but the entire time a complete champ, visiting children's hospitals and children's cancer facilities, and speaking with these youth. And it just breaks my heart knowing that he went out like this in secret. And some of his later images on social media was him dealing with his sickness, but no one knew. And he was the talk of the town, of people cracking on him and thinking he was on drugs, which he was, but not the drugs that we were thinking of. And it is just a horrible, horrible thing. And I'm glad that I've evolved to a point where I don't assume anything when I see images like that. When I saw it, I was just like, "Oh, that don't look good," but I didn't know what to think.
What they were
But,
saying, they were speculating that he was getting ready for a role that he had to lose a
yeah,
lot of weight for.
hmm
So that I hadn't heard any of the cracks, even though I believe you. I know that it did
it
happen.
was bad on social
Yeah,
media.
people can be some jerks, but
He had to delete the post.
dang. But I really did think he was getting ready for a film. I just
Mhm.
sickness never crossed my mind about him.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we do recognize like the importance of legacy when talking about this brother, because he, like you talking about what he did and the change, how it affected other people's career, and we wouldn't have even had him if it hadn't been for Denzel giving back.
hmm
Another thing is, I often hear people, they try to take up for certain celebrities, and not just celebrities, but anybody, when they do something crazy and anti-black as a part of their career. The first thing some of us will say is, well, they got to make money, they got to work, you know. And it's important that we understand you can make money, you can work, you can survive. You don't have to buck dance, you don't have to sell out, you don't have to, you know, degrade your people in order to do that. And I'm gonna be honest with you, at some point it's not even about the money, because most of these people tap dancing for butter biscuits, they have money already. It's about a lack of, it's about a poor black self-concept within a lot of us. And many of our celebrities are just as clueless and traumatized and messed up as just any black person, you see walking down the street.
Family member Kat Mahari says, I read a tweet that quoted a study that basically stated that Chadwick was raised in a town with one of the highest national cancer rates due to industrial pollution amongst Black
Wow.
people. hmm
Mm, mm, mm.
And so I haven't researched that, but I'm 100% ready to believe it. And part of it, one thing that I wanted to point out too is that another thing is our Black community's reaction to Black conspiracy theory people. Because I know immediately when I found out that Chadwick had passed away, I was playing video games at the moment, and I was talking to my friend group in a party chat, and they mentioned it, and I just put my controller down, just looking to find out in the middle of an online game, y'all, you don't do that. But this was Chadwick, and when I saw it, immediately my first response was they killed him. Like I don't know how or what. Before I found out any of the facts, is that they killed him, and I wasn't ready or willing to believe anything else at that moment. It's just because when you have powerful black figures, there's always attacks. There's always things that happen to black people. Even when we look at what Kat Mahari just said here, is that the maliciousness of the society that we live in, far as putting up even institutions or pollution in our cities and where black people specifically live, or redlining, which was like the specific gentrification and making sure that black people's water supply was all lead infested, or that black people didn't have water at all. If you look at Flint, so it's just so many different stories and narratives of black people being messed over on a really large scale, an intense scale. That of course, the moment something horrible happens to one of our figures, we think the worst. We think evil has come to town, and in this case, even though what Kat Mahari just said, that may change the perspective on this a little bit. But in this case, he did pass away from a disease, and something that, again, we'll just reiterate for our community is that colon cancer is a preventable one. And I saw some tweets and posts that were saying, if Chadwick taught me anything, is that if you feel sad, then keep working and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I hope if he taught you anything is also, if you are sick, or not sick, you're getting checked up. You are taking care of your health. And that you also don't owe anybody anything, far as doing these films and whatnot. Your personal health is absolutely important. We could have had this brother for a lot longer, if things worked out differently. And that's just what I want to make sure that we take away. But heading into the meat and potatoes today, and he's absolutely the opener for that. It says Black Artistry, how to build a legacy of Black healing and resistance. And we mentioned Denzel Washington earlier. And something that I've always loved about Denzel is that there was a point in his career, and you may know more about the specifics, where he refused to have a white love interest in one of his movies because it had happened before. And he recognized the backlash that happened in his community and how it made Black women feel, how it made the optics of Black love, what that looked like on film. And he said, you know what? The next film I do has got to be. And he fought for that and made sure. And he went on record as stating that Black women have been too loyal, have been too supportive for me to get up on screen and be with someone that's not them. And that's part of that idea of building Black healing and resistance. Or too oftentimes when we think about what Black power and Black representation is, we don't recognize that it's about being Black with no white people in the room. Like, too oftentimes we're ready to put diversity up. It's like diversity is when Black people are here and white people are there. Then we got some other groups of people in the background. Diversity is also just Black stories. Period. That's it. That's what true diversity will look like in a landscape of where everyone else gets their culture put up there on screen to be exemplified for our society.
Yeah. Adam, can you put the flyer up too real quick so everybody can get a visual once again?
Yeah.
Of the topic and everything that we're covering.
While he's looking for that, I know that we had brother Tobe. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. You know his last name?
Come on, Tope. Is he from Baltimore? I don't know his last name, but I know that brother.
He's from Baltimore?
I think he lives in Baltimore. The brother who you talking about, Tope.
Wow.
He's cool with a Kofi them, a Kofor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. In fact, I'm gonna go through some of these comments here. We have Soga, or our brother Kenneth. He said, generally, we live in areas near waste, toxic elements, and radiation. Absolutely true. This is something that I know our Native American peers have also been dealing with for years, decades, of where the reservations are positioned. Something that happened early, I wasn't able to get to it at the moment. Let's see. Uh, During the hot topics, we said, Lowell B. Anthony, B. Denny, I'm sorry. We have time to answer this. It says, what are your opinions on why Rachel Dolezal and Jessica Krug are ridiculed for claiming to be black, but the transgender line we're supposed to accept is a man can be a woman and vice versa, and trans women should be allowed in women's spaces? That's a I have thoughts now, but I want to pass to you first, Kashama.
Oh, you would, huh?
What are your opinions on this?
I can only speak as a black person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't speak from the trans point of view, and I can't speak from the point of view of a woman, because I believe that women have some thoughts on this in regards to
And
trans
if
women.
any women are out there who want to join,
Um,
please join. We
yeah,
are, looking for your perspective on this.
yeah. As a black person, my issue with them is that there's a real that being black. One thing, being black is purely a social construct. Let's understand that it's a geopolitical designation that is based off of centuries of slavery and oppression and genocide. Okay, so that's what black is. We happen to be descended from Africa. Our ancestors come from Africa, but we have plenty of black people walking around here of different shades. Like what's her name, Vanessa Williams. I got some light skinned people in my family, right? I got a cousin in my family so light. We used to work together, and people would come up to her speaking Spanish. We're from Florida, and she would have to let them know in her very black Southern accent that she don't speak no Spanish because she's a sister, right? She's a black woman. So this is a real history and it's a real struggle and a real oppression that we go through. So for them to put on their cosplay and to basically exploit blackness for all that they can actually get out of it, meaning whatever academia activist circles will reward them for their pontifications and abstract blackness, that's it's worse than an insult. It's damaging to black people and it's damaging to our struggle. I can't speak on how trans women damage women who are born women or vice versa. So that's a conversation that I think, yeah, trans people are gonna have along with some other people who have stronger feelings on it. But I'm definitely
Um,
black.
I have a way to. So my thoughts on this, and I can also tie this back to our topic at hand, which is about Black artistry, how to build a legacy of healing and resistance. Uh, when it comes to the subject of gender amongst Black people specifically, is we've come to terms with gender a lot differently than a lot of other ethnic groups out there. And specifically in American colonized context, we have been operating from a state of colonization considerably, a lot of it, and trying to emulate various different ideas of standards of what is manhood and womanhood, first of all. And we have not fully operated in our own culture and reached back to understand exactly how we commune with each other and how we have come to understand and treat our brothers and sisters who are of gender variance, because that has happened consistently and thoroughly throughout our communities, pre, during, and after enslavement. And so when it comes to how I feel personally, if you're going to ask me how I feel personally about trans individuals operating specifically or being claimed as men or as women specifically, I will say that I do not believe that and operate in that particular context. That's not something that I'm prepared to just say. I believe that trans men are trans men. I believe that trans women are trans women. And I know I've known from various different individuals across the spectrum that everyone comes to terms with their transgender experience differently. Some individuals experience it as a evolution. of their pre-gender, or the gender that they were quote unquote born as, and some individuals experience their transgenderism as a trauma, as something where they should not have been born in that particular body and format, and so they do things to correct it. So there's different perspectives and different ways and thoughts of movement that those individuals operate with. In addition to uh, there's also now non-binary individuals who claim that, and what does that mean? And I've always had the conclusion that if you say that you're non-binary in this society, I really don't know what that means. I don't know if you are non-binary because you don't believe that you have a gender, or I don't know if you're non-binary because you're trying to critique a society that is so gender binary on what should be a male and what should be a female around all of these pretty languages. All that to say, because we're getting into something else, uh, we need more narratives on Black people expressing and talking about how they come to terms with their gender in our media, in our movies, in our music, and whatnot else, so that we can have the conversation authentically within ourselves. Because right now the conversation is heavily, heavily codified and operated through a white supremacist myth context lens. White people are dictating exactly how sexuality and gender are supposed to be talked about, and they don't got it right. They ain't got it right either. Like, you can't tell you we cannot keep going to a people that have no idea how to treat other people as human beings and ask them, well, how do you treat other people as human beings? I'm not. We keep doing that consistently, and I'm not with it. So
And they are
when it
so
comes
not
to
the standard bearer.
yeah, when it comes to our transgender brothers and sisters and everyone, however you operate, because there's so many different languages now in terms. My preferred is gender variance. Uh, I want to make sure that we make space for your art and your music and your movies, because that's a real teaching factor when it comes to a lot of different concepts. It's where is the production? We got to make sure that we make it safe enough in our communities that these individuals are not harmed simply for existing, and vice versa for the rest of us, because we're killing each other just for existing these days. Oh, you got $20? Let me go and take that. You walked in my hood, we're going to take that. So we have a lot of healing and things that we need to do as a community as a whole, in order to
One
make sure that
thing,
we can operate.
Duke, I want to emphasize something you said though about telling our own stories.
Mm-hmm,
One problem with I think a lot of issues that we come across in our community, or how we discuss them, is the fact that we don't get to tell these stories. Even when there's someone Black telling them, they're either controlled by white people or by white entities, or they're so whitewashed and brainwashed and colonized, like Tyler Perry, that they just automatically tell an anti-black story.
mm-hmm,
Speaking of, so there's a show called The Shy, right?
mm-hmm,
And my goddaughter, she's 13, and she just recently told me that she loves The Shy, and I'm like, right? I don't want to watch that show. But there are some real, subject matters in that show that Black people should be talking about and unpacking. The problem is there are so many agendas. There's so many white political agendas being pushed in that show. You can't get to it from an honest perspective. Um, WAP is on the flyer of this show here, and I put it on there mainly because there's this discussion around Black women expressing their sexuality and gender and respectability politics. However, the lens is being shot through a white supremacy mythology lens. The landscape is a white supremacy mythology landscape, and on top of that, we have no balance.
mm-hmm.
Everywhere you look, Black men and Black women are being portrayed a certain way, and we don't control it. And there's no balance to these optics or these images. What do you think about that?
So when it came to WAP, and I think it's a very layered perspective, right? So the song is a hit now, anyway, and I think when I first heard it, I was just like, oh, that's not really for me. But as it kept going, it kind of just grew on me. Um, but what I think is that I think for the community, if we're talking about like, does it do the community well or good as a whole? Absolutely not. That's my perspective. But I also believe in making space for women to talk about what they want to talk about. And I feel like if we're going to have this conversation about uh, music lyrics not being good for the community, I don't feel like it's fair to start the conversation at WAP, right?
Mm.
And that's where I'm like, I feel like there's some gender stuff going on there. Like, that's where my particular conversation would be. But beyond that, this was a critique that was raised to Cardi as well, as far as like there being an imbalance. And she put it out there. She said, when the women and the men who are talking about the positive things, that's not the hit. That's not what sells. That's not what the community wants to hear. And I think beyond that being a point, there's also the additional point that these music industries are not slick. They are very strategic in who they hire, what they recommend, and what they play on the radios. There's reasons why certain artists do not get the deals. So there's it's a really layered thing that's happening there where I feel like WAP is in front of the S hole, if anyone knows what I'm saying, is in front of the S hole, but there's a whole bunch of S behind it, right?
Well,
So
when you talk about good and bad for the community, right?
mhm,
I happen to I first of all I never really listened to WAP the whole way through until recently, right?
okay,
Yeah, when it first came out, I just heard everybody saying WAP WAP WAP. I'm like, what the hell is WAP? And then I found out what it was. Still took me a couple weeks to even look at the video. And the first thing I thought was like, oh, they off beat in the beginning, right? But I got a chance to listen to the whole song, and I'm like, I mean, the song is about sex. It's about getting down. It's about what grown people do, right? The only problem is that it comes on the damn radio for our children to hear it. Like when
mhm.
grown people are getting ready to do what we do, I think the song is right on time. She's talking about some real stuff in that WAP, right?
Mhm.
And even when we're talking about some of the lyrics that even came before WAP, when we talking about some of the gangster rap that came out, those were real stories coming from real streets, real people. The problem is we allowed it to be force fed to our children, a steady diet of that and nothing but that, and no critical analysis coming from the adults in the room. Partially
There,
because we had it our damn self.
there used to be a point in radio where certain songs wouldn't even come on until a certain time of night.
Yeah.
And I know here in Baltimore, we used to have LaDawn Black in the Love Zone, and you just wouldn't hear. And hers was all smooth, slow, sultry jams, but those songs just would not play until after 9 o'clock here in Baltimore. Back when I was younger, but now we live in this age where everything is accessible immediately, and it's all about immediate streams and whatnot else. And we don't live in a society that particularly carries to that idea or pathology anymore. So, yeah, it does require parents to be a lot more active in making sure that our children know what's going on, as far as like if they do happen to hear this stuff, because I don't think you can protect them from it anymore. It's just not possible. Like if you give them any type of technology device, it's over. And you need to give them one because you got to check in to find out where they at, and it's so much.
Yeah.
So it is I think it requires us to have a lot more honest dialogues with our children. That's going to be uncomfortable for us, but at younger ages even. Like cuz people are just finding out things at a lot younger ages than what some of us are accustomed to or knew about. I didn't know what sex was at certain ages, but I knew where to find magazines that looked a little different. But I didn't know what I was doing, but that was there. And now it's just, it's explained to us as WAP. And you
Wow.
can you can put that thing in a little dangly thing in the back of my it's
Well,
very descriptive.
I didn't
It's
know.
very
I didn't
it's
know.
a
I
how-to guide.
like even the concept of WAP didn't. I don't think it even entered my head until I was probably like a teenager, right? You know, I didn't know nothing about a WAP. I didn't know that the op was supposed to have a W in front of it, right?
Mhm.
Until like I say, a teenager. But now it's on the radio. Like I say, you got 7, 8 year olds hearing it. We got a lot of stuff on the flyer. I also have Alvin Ailey and Judith Jameson on there because
Mm-hmm.
that's like a
Oh, you
like
gotta say who they are. You can't just mention people. And I
well
know, I know who
Alvin
Al
Ailey. I would think I would hope that we would know who Alvin Ailey is, but Alvin Ailey, ran like the largest, most prestigious black dance theater, in the world. Started in the I believe it was in the early '60s. They were part of the Black Arts movement. Judith Jameson led the theater after he, I believe, resigned or retired or something like that. She was also a great dancer. You go and pull up some old footage of her doing her thing. I mean, I believe that we need to get back into looking at our art and our creativity in a holistic manner and stop letting money run the show because all it's doing is just running us down as a people and as a culture. When the money is there, can't nobody do what we do. Brandy and Monica proves that. Patty and Gladys proves that. You don't have an equivalent Patty
Erica,
LaBelle.
Joe. Mm-hmm.
There's no white Patti LaBelle. There's no white Aretha Franklin. And we can just name these old ass ladies in our community that can set a whole club on fire when they get ready to, right? Aretha was making club bangers in her well into her 60s. We don't have that in no other culture. We are so exceptional. We need to stop chasing the bag and start chasing our own worth. That's my thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a comment again from our brother Lowell. It says, "Not what sells is the industry saying there aren't enough black consumers. The music industry is run by white men, and they ruined rap because it had to be sold to white suburban boys." And that's absolutely true. There's definitely a conversation about where hip hop has went, and how it's not marketed really for us anymore, and how is made to feel white suburban boys feel our culture and feel like they're part of it, and feel like they can operate in it. But again, things that you mentioned, Kashava, again, looking back at just Monica and Brandy, think how many people was it? Was it 1 million?
I think it was I was more than that. I think I heard 3 million or something.
Like it's just, and after that, and then after that, mind you, and these are older songs too. Right after that they went straight up to the top 40. They covered, I think it was like 38 of the top 40 in Apple's playlists, like between the two of them. And it's just like there's no one else doing this. There's no culture other than us doing this. And we have the ability through the myriad of artists that we have, pull out our Ushers and our Brian McKnights and and just really treat ourselves the way that we deserve to be treated. Uh, we can really make it known. Let's see here. We got a family member here,
Got
Kat
our first
Mahari.
family member.
Welcome
Hey, Kat.
in.
Hey, how you
You've been
doing?
speaking in that chat too. I've been seeing you dropping those comments, dropping those gems. How you doing, family?
Well, how are you doing?
Good.
It's good to
What's
meet
on your mind?
Well, when you were just speaking about healing, resistance, and particularly the the materialization, the manifestation of liberatory spaces, I was thinking I'm a street dancer, I'm a club dancer, I do hip hop, house, and whacking. I'm a whacking scholar, Princess Lockaroo student of the legendary Tyrone the Bone Proctor, who passed just recently, rest in peace, one of the original Soul Train dancers, and had a wonderful tribute written up in the LA Times, it's up in New York Times, just an amazing, beautiful Black person, right? A contributor of culture, a legacy builder, one who had been gifted in the Black gay spaces he was in the West Coast in California, and continued to share those revelatory, liberatory gifts with the world. And it just makes me think of the lack of what I'm calling community control. I know often we hear the term community control in relation to police. And I think that term, though, can be ascribed to multiple ways in which Black people and Blackness has to be described and have our lives circumcised by, you know, anti-Blackness, by white supremacy. And it's rampant in the street dance club culture. It is quite rampant. And it just sort of reminds me of that whole, like, that beautiful picture of Louis Armstrong playing the trumpet with his wife, and they're in the pyramids, in Egypt. And he went to there as a U.S. State Department on one of those kind of artist programs, the so-called spread the culture, and
I
help.
never saw that photo, by the way.
Oh yeah, well that exists. Check it out.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful picture because it is two beautiful Black beings, obviously with a lot of love and support with each other, with this great backdrop of the pyramids. But that was all, sanctioned and promoted by the U.S. State Department, and we know the U.S. State Department is an arm of imperialism and white supremacy and anti-Blackness nationally and globally. And that also happens within street dance club culture, where we have street dancers, club culture legends being promoted. Somebody mentioned Alvin Ailey. I think it was you, Sankofa. And Alvin Ailey is one of the most promoted U.S. State Department dance companies. They've done the most tours of all the dance companies. You know what I'm saying? And so there is still, even within the arts, there is an obvious, whether we're speaking so-called commercially or whatnot, an obvious lack of community control, and how that complicates any attempt to get into these spaces that Duke was speaking on, these spaces where Blackness is existing and being able to thrive within it with no white people in the room and no white people or whiteness itself, because there are race traders, no whiteness itself able to penetrate the room. And that's just something I wanted to bring to you.
Thank you, Kat. So we didn't get to mention this, but for anyone who comes on after you speak with us, we have to politely let you leave. But before you go, Kat, I want you to answer this for us. If you had one example of what community control looks like, if you had the ability to create the standard, just give me one standard that you would make for community control.
One standard.
One standard that you would make if you had the ability to set the standards of what does community control look like for Black arts, Black creativity. What's something that you would say is the standard? What's something that we got to make sure happens?
Okay, I don't want to be facetious, though it's in me. It's in me. You hear me? But honestly speaking, I think, and this might sound extreme for some, but one standard, and this goes globally for all cultures and ethnicities. So I'm not even just speaking for Black people or on behalf of Black people or as myself as a Black person, but the spaces have to be blackity black. The kind of Blackness that doesn't that we don't even have the words to describe, because our ideas of Blackness are so enchained with enslavement. Like we would have to come through the other side of that psychosis.
You see how we're so scared to talk about our own creativity and say it's for us? Like, because in that moment, because this is something that's a huge issue in a larger community, is that we're talking about what's good for us, and we're like, well, I don't want to offend nobody. Well, I don't want to offend the white person, but just me. I want my people here, and we're talking specifically for us.
I'm talking about for us, but for us as the fulcrum for everything else. Everything imaginable. I mean, the blackity black of environmental spaces, the blackity black of art spaces, the blackity black of toilets and bathrooms, and the blackity black of clothes. And I'm thinking of Black as a critical consciousness that's been being critiqued and practiced and experimentalized and really thought very strongly for at least a couple of hundreds of years. I'm talking about the later years of the Du Bois Blackness. I'm talking about, let's go there. Let's go Frank Wilderson. Let's go Cleo Monago. Let's go. And that kind of joyous Black, that the kind of joy we experience, man, we had that kind of Blackness going on globally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kat. Thank you so much. One thing that we didn't really get to talk much more about is just, in order to create this legacy of healing and resistance, it requires, well, we didn't mention that Denzel and Chadwick have the word integrity. It really requires us to be intent on supporting and uplifting our community. Like you have to have a real agenda when you are in these spaces to make sure that Black people are seen in a positive light, in a light that you want to see replicated throughout these media sources. And one thing that I do, and so I'm a poet, y'all. And I have a story of a Black father who unfortunately was not around, and he was happened to be a victim of the drug epidemic. And I have poems of like the quote unquote deadbeat dad. But something that I make sure that I don't do is I don't do those poems in rooms full of white people, because I know that that particular narrative can be used in order to create a character of what my community goes through, and really erase the beauty and the of stories of Black men who are there for their children, which is a lot higher than quote unquote deadbeat dads. That narrative, my narrative, will be used to be painted as a larger system. So it's things like that. It's having thought process about where you share your art, who you share it with, and really making sure that no one can write a different narrative about what's going on in your communities. You got to make sure that you are in control of the narrative. What do you think about that?
The thing about integrity, Duke, though, what comes first, though, in my thoughts, it would be that Black self concept, because you can't have what you have, you know what I'm saying, and feel the way you feel unless you feel like Black people are worth that, right? You have to actually feel like Black people are worth you painting in a good light in order to even have integrity. You know what I'm saying? I've even seen, and then another thing is too, we are gonna have to begin to learn how to like create something on our own. Not just always thinking on the level of celebrityhood. I once heard Whoopi Goldberg say, people was asking her, about what's your advice to someone who wants to be an actor. She said to act, go be an actor. You don't have to become Whoopi Goldberg to be an actor. You're doing Shakespeare in the Park, you're an actor. You see what I'm saying? I think there needs to be way more avenues for us as a people to be able to take care of ourselves too, because it gets in a way to where some people are so poor, it's like they can't afford integrity. And we have to get to a place to where some of our people are not so desperate, and that they're not placed into these places of desperation where they will do anything for a bag. And then some of us who are not so much in a desperate position, we just need to be able to have a better self-concept of ourselves and of Black people, to be able to have a certain amount of integrity. Because like I said, for some people, it goes beyond just the money. Like Jay-Z doesn't need money at this point. You know what I'm saying? But we were talking about that whole NFL thing, and a lot of people were saying, "Well, he got to make money. He got to make money." I'm like, no. At this point, it's more about seeing himself like as close to the white men around him and competing with his white peers. At this point, that's what it's about. So yeah, integrity comes, but first I think comes that Black self concept, as well as that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if we should always keep giving Maslow credit for it, because those needs existed before he got credit for it. But that hierarchy of needs that so many Black people do not have met. So many Black artists, I should say.
I just want to highlight some of the comments here that we didn't get to. We have Alexander Kiwas. Hey, Alex, it's been quite a while. It says,
why you didn't call in?
It says owning and telling our narratives are very important, related to Black healthy self-concept. Chadwick was instrumental in that, particularly with Black Panther. Absolutely. We got another comment from here from Lowell. It says the queens are Black women: queen of soul, queen of salsa, queen of blues, queen of I don't know this word. Zydeco. You have to teach me that one. What's that?
That's some Louisiana music.
Absolutely. So it says here, this is a good one. Judas, Alex asked, what are our thoughts on Judas and the Black Messiah? You know about that? You seen that trailer?
I saw the trailer, and I don't like the title.
Yeah. So let's go with the story. What's the story?
Well, it's about Fred Hampton, who was the chairman of the Black Panther Party. I believe he was chairman of the chapter in Chicago, or it may have been he may have became national chair. I have to go back and do my reading on Brother Fred Hampton. But he was assassinated. He was murdered by the state, mind you. He was murdered, I believe it was the FBI, if we're talking about the actual bureau or agency that killed him. And they used an informant, of course. They threatened this brother who was already, looking at, who was already in dealing with legal issues with the state. They used that as leverage to get him
Blackmail.
to show, right,
Let's
a
be
black
very
man.
clear.
Right.
Blackmail. I'm saying they used blackmail to make sure that he did this.
Right, so-called blackmail. But yeah, they used blackmail against a blackmail to kill another blackmail. And in this title, it says nothing about the devil. You're
That's a
talking
quote.
about the
Someone put that in the
Messiah. You're
comments.
talking about Judas, but what about the devil? Shit, excuse
I
me.
like that. I really do like that. So the brother that was used in this, and so when they're going to talk about this story, Lakeith Stanfield, who's another exceptional actor, I really do like
Mhm.
Lakeith. I've been following Lakeith for a while. Will be playing the brother who was the informant. I'm sorry, I didn't have the name up because this is a
And
comment right
Daniel
now. But the brother,
Kaluuya,
hmm,
Daniel Kaluuya is playing Fred Hampton.
okay, even though he don't want to play no more black roles. Anyway, but anyways, this story is going to be interesting because I know they're going to paint this informant. I won't say I know. I'm fearful that they're going to paint this informant as the end all be all evil, the devil, if you will, in this particular story. And so many people don't know how much of a victim he was because he was pulled up off the streets and said, if you don't do this, then blah blah
Mhm.
blah 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 is going to happen. And he was hunted and like he had to do these secret meetings. When they did the raid on the house, they didn't know that the informant was not going to be there, and so he absolutely could have been killed in the process. And so he was upset and fearful about that. Like there was no regard. It wasn't like he was treated as this informant and he thought everything was great. I know he did some interview at some point where he was trying to justify his actions, but this brother wound up killing himself sometime later and just not knowing. And so I put that out there as a contextualization of the story because we know that this informant relies, unfortunately, in many of us. It relies in many of our brothers, our sisters, our children, and we have to edit them out through critical thinking and cultural affirmation, CTCA, a program through Dr. Cleo Monago. But I see here that we have another family member in, and this will probably be bringing us down towards the close. But Jimmy, are you there?
You got to unmute, Jimmy. That's my dad's name, by the way.
Reminds me of Jimmy Baldwin, James Baldwin.
Yeah.
I envy all of his friends that called him Jimmy. If something changes, we'll welcome you back in, Jimmy. We're still here. But
He made a comment about something about healing, and I think that is very important. It's a very important. It used to be, I'm not gonna say used to be because it still is, excuse me. It still is a very important part of our musical culture and traditions of entertainment. But healing is something so important within our music. And I'm glad he brought it up because that's something I think we need to start focusing on more so as well as pay more attention to artists who are about healing, as well as artists who are about resistance too. That's why I put that brother on who made the song about Try Jesus.
Oh
Try
yeah,
Jesus. Yeah,
not
not me because I throw hands and I shoot.
yeah. Kat also comments says that Fred Hampton was murdered with his pregnant wife in bed with him. Absolutely, that's what
Mhm.
those devils in the police agency did. It's important to note when we talk about a legacy of Black healing and resistance. One, I'm surprised this film is coming out, honestly, because this is a narrative that America tries to run away from. One, but I'm very sure that they framed it this way because they're going to paint the informant as the most evil particular character in this movie, as opposed to the government that was heavily involved in shutting down Fred Hampton and the rest of the associates there. And it's so telling about the lengths that white supremacist myth will go. Kenneth said that Denzel Washington, he clarified exactly what movie it was. And it says Denzel Washington refused the love scenes with Julia Roberts in the film Philadelphia. I actually saw an interview with Julia Roberts some time ago where they talked about that. And she seemed a little hurt that he didn't want to do anything with her. He said, well, he didn't want to do anything. So it was just like, oh.
I think that was Katie Couric's problem too.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Yeah, she was expecting Denzel. She wanted Denzel to wink at her and and to flirt with her and all that. And Denzel was like calling out her BS.
But can you imagine like Denzel with? I was so glad Denzel not with one of them. Like he knew how to love himself in his own image. Colte said there's definitely has to be black affirming self-concept, and black artists / content creators must be intentional. What's the link to get on? If you scroll up in the chat, and maybe we can post it again, but if you scroll up in the chat, Colte, the link is definitely available. We have about 4 minutes left. If you can jump in quickly enough, we would love to hear from you, Cortez.
Yeah, you should have been called in, Cortez. I made sure I invited you personally to this. And you are one of the main black artists out here fighting for integrity and refusing to sell out.
Yep. So when you think of your artistry, Kashama, what are some intentional goals and practices that you make sure that you do in a concept of what needs to be said about Black people?
Well, to be honest with you, I stopped calling myself an artist because I don't dedicate the amount of time. I know what it's like to be an artist. I was an artist, so I know that it's a discipline and it's something you dedicate your life to. So I don't call myself that, but I will express myself through different mediums, be it music, sometimes spoken word, and not too long ago I actually did a play that was directed by Cartes, part of Cartes Theater Company. But I shoot for
authenticity. We post that or put the link for Cortez again, please?
I shoot for authenticity. And the reason I shoot for authenticity is because I've already done this work of Black self-conceptual health. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm staying true to myself, then I'm staying true to Black people. So my suggestion is for artists to first do that work, do that self audit. You know what I'm saying? Learn what Black self-conceptual health is. Learn what critical thinking and how to culturally affirm yourself. And then when you're creating your art, you don't have to try to figure out, all right, how to make sure I'm true to Black people. Hell, you are Black people. And and now that you're thinking like a Black person in their right mind, be true to thyself.
Absolutely. I see the link has been posted for anyone that wants to join in. I know that we're waiting for Cortez. We got about 2 minutes left, people. Love to hear from you.
Well, I was going to say,
comments
we're
short,
going to be wrapping up.
Yeah, got to keep
Cortez,
the comments.
If you don't make it, brother, this train might pull off.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so we're trying to wait for Cortez. We have about 1 minute left in the live stream, but it seems as if that brother may not make it on in time. However, we're gonna just go ahead and close out. We definitely appreciate all of our melanated family, all of our melanoids out there tuning in to Melanated Solutions Media. And yeah, we definitely enjoy doing this. We enjoy bringing this message to you, and we enjoy even more when you call in and join us. And we would like to put us out a special invitation to one of our sisters. We definitely want a Black woman voice, more Black women voices to come on and give us your perspective. In addition to that, so is there any final comments that you have, Duke, before we do leave?
Not many. I just want to remind people, please follow us and subscribe to all of our appropriate channels. If you have not found our Melanated Solutions Media page on Facebook, please do so. We do stream this to other sites, but we want to have the following on our direct Melanated Solutions Media Facebook page. We would love for you to come through to our YouTube as well. Subscribe to our YouTube. In addition, Lowell had put up a comment saying, I need this every week. Thank you. And I can't say too much yet, but stay tuned, Lowell, because there is going to be something on a more routine basis coming forth. It's not going to be exactly this, but there will be some more routine things coming up. So please stay tuned to our social media pages. We can't wait to see you all in our next session. I know that for sure we'll probably be discussing Trump with his latest scandal in these tapes. But we'll see what else comes up between then and now. And hopefully Patti LaBelle and Gladys is going to happen between then and now, right? Like I don't know the date for it.
Yeah, I don't know the date for it.
Yeah. So join us so far, second and fourth Fridays for Melanated Solutions Media. It was great to see you all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, family. Y'all be safe. Peace out.